Hi everybody, welcome back to PTE Plus online lessons. Today we're going to be giving you 3 steps to master the repeat sentence section of the PTE exam. So, a lot of you will be thinking to yourselves that we've been spending quite a lot of time on the repeat sentence section, and yes, that's correct. Today we're going to be sort of summarizing everything you've been learning into 3 simple steps to give you a great way to practice for the repeat sentence section and to equip you with all the techniques and knowledge you'll need in order to do well in the exam. So we can essentially break it down into 3 simple steps. Step 1, for us to listen to the phrasing of the sentence. Step 2, to simplify the answer. And step 3, for us to imitate the stress and intonation of the response. So without further ado, let's get into it. Step 1, practice listening to the phrasing of the sentence. So here we have a passage. Let's listen to it together. But before we do, I want you to get a piece of paper. I'm sure you're familiar with this technique already. I want you to take a piece of paper and a pen. For however many phrases you hear, I want you to draw lines. So for example, if you think you hear 3 phrases, I want to see 3 lines. And the longer the phrase, the longer the line has to be on your piece of paper. Are you ready? Okay, let's listen to it together.
I think the university's main campus is closed.
Okay, so how many lines did everybody draw? You're not sure? Okay, that's fine. Let's listen to it one more time before we talk about it. If you're able to separate your answer into 2 chunks, then congratulations, you got the answer correctly. So I think it should be separated into 2 chunks, one larger chunk at the front and one smaller chunk at the end. So for now, let's not worry with the larger chunk. Let's instead focus on the smaller chunk. The ending is closed. So the ending is quite simple, right? Because it's quite short and it's fresh in our memory. Is closed. So the sentence is actually quite simple. I think the something is closed. So here we've got the answer. I think the university's main campus is closed. So in terms of the phrase here, university's main campus, a lot of students will be likely to forget 1 or 2 of the words here. So some students will forget university, some students will forget campus, and some students will forget main. And in this particular example, even if you have a vague recollection that the word should be university, if you're not familiar with it and if you're not 100% about it, just skip the word. Just say, I think the something main campus is closed. That would be an example of a good response. So in your own practice, whenever you're unsure about a word, immediately simplify it into something. I think the something is closed. Even if you are familiar with the word university, and even if you think you can say it, don't take the chance. If you think there's a chance you're going to be stuttering, if you think there's a chance you're going to be hesitating, don't take the chance. Skip it and say, I think the something's main campus is closed. So the whole idea behind it is testing your reflexes. What we're practicing is having 0 hesitation, 0 pause in our response. So when you're practicing at home, remember, don't say the answer straight away. Take the time to consider it. And remember, listen for phrases, not the complete sentence. And once you've heard the phrases, try to remember each phrase and then treat it. Okay, let's do another one as practice.
I can't attend a lecture because of a doctor appointment.
Okay, so don't rush. As soon as you've heard of it, just try to think about how many lines you've drawn. And you should have 2 lines here, right? If you look at the phrases in isolation, the first one should be about I can't attend a lecture, or something about not being able to go to a lecture. So can't attend a lecture. And the second part is giving us a reason for the first part. Because of a doctor's appointment, or is it because I have a doctor's appointment, or is it because I'm attending a doctor's appointment, or is it because I'm thinking about going to a doctor's appointment? But at this stage, you realize whatever's coming at the end is obviously not that important. We have our main phrases. I can't attend a lecture because something doctor's appointment. So the next step would be for us to think about where the stress is and think about how the original speaker was able to have intonation and stress within the sentence, both in terms of individual words and phrases. In this particular case, it would be, I can't attend the lecture because of a doctor's appointment. I can't attend the lecture because I have a doctor's appointment. I can't attend the lecture because of a doctor's appointment. Notice how the stress is carried through for can't and doctor, and it's only through practicing like this are you able to achieve higher marks. So remember, whatever you do, make sure you draw the lines for phrases first before going to the next step. Okay, let's look at another example here. This one. Let's listen to it.
More females than males graduated from universities last year.
So here we clearly can see that there are 3 lines, right? 3 separate phrases. And it's this method that allows us to capture the most information. So instead of trying to remember it as a sentence as a whole, we're breaking it down into meaningful phrases, so when we're recalling it in our minds, it makes more sense. And in my experience, typically it takes students around 100 different sets of practice before they're able to sort of have this effect in terms of their answers, before they're able to recall in terms of phrases as opposed to individual words or sentences. So you need to persist with this and practice at least 100 different questions using this technique. Now that brings us to step 2. How can we simplify the answer? Okay. Now, let me give you a small task to do. So here we've got a sentence, right? I'm going to give you 5 seconds and I want you to remember it. Your time starts now. Okay, can you repeat the sentence for me? That was really tricky, wasn't it? See, the problem here is the same as if you're trying to remember it word by word. If you're trying to remember it word by word, you're not going to be able to get very far. Even if I were to read it to you, it'd be like, the cafe house is closed down, but the snack machine will be running throughout the night. You're going to have a tough time remembering that as well, right? So let me give you another chance. How about if I were to chunk it like this? Now give yourself 5 seconds to remember it. Okay, please repeat it. So you'll have found that you've done much better the second time because the information is in chunks. So in regards to how can we simplify it, because we have 3 phrases here, and it's only natural that we find some phrases more easy to remember compared to others. And in that particular case, even in each individual phrase, there will be parts which will be tougher than others. So throughout the night, that's easy for us to remember, right? The cafe house is closed down. That's got a little bit more complexity. So if we don't want to listen to the word cafe in our minds, we can sort of simplify it straight away. The something, that's too hard, right? The cafe house. Let's just change that to something. The something is closed down, but the something will be running. And snack machine isn't something that we're going to see in our day-to-day conversations, so that's going to be tough, right? Something machine, it's too hard. Let's mark it down as something. The something is closed down, but the something will be running throughout the night. And in that particular case, that is the process of simplification. So whatever we think is tough to remember, or whatever we're having a tough time remembering, or we're having a tough time putting into our minds, we immediately, without hesitation, change it to something. And it's this method of simplification which we need to practice again and again to improve our reflexive response into allowing us to do this pretty much on demand and as a reflex very naturally. Okay, let me again give you 5 seconds to remember this. Okay, can you repeat that? See, that was much easier, right? So essentially, the whole process of simplification goes like this. You take a sentence, you break it down with your eyes into chunks, and within these sort of chunks, you pick out what's easy for you to remember and what's complex and what's hard for you to remember. And once you've identified what's hard and what's easy for you, you add the word something, you replace what's difficult with something instead of the actual word, and then repeat. So it becomes much easier for us. That's a process of simplification. Let's move on now to the third technique, imitation, in terms of stress and intonation. So here it's important to remember we're not only repeating the words, but instead we're also imitating the stress and intonation, the 10 marks given for pronunciation and fluency. So whenever we're listening to these sort of sentences, it's important for us to remember we're also listening to the different stress, finding out the different word stress and different sentence stress. So here we've got a sentence. I want you to listen to it and follow along if you can with your eyes for the different stress patterns.
A periodical is a publication that is issued regularly.
Da 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 da. Yep. Is that still in your mind? Now I want you to try to repeat this with me. A periodical is a publication that is issued regularly. Issued regularly. And on a deeper level, you'll discover that there's definitely also intonation in there, right? All students and staff have access to printers and laptops. Notice how it goes up and down, right? Down on staff and then up on printers. Pay attention to this. All students and staff have access to printers and laptops. And these sort of intonations and sort of stress patterns, you can't really learn overnight. It takes a lot of practice before you're used to being able to not only listen to them, but also produce them once you've identified them in speech. And there's also this sort of process of automation that occurs. For example, if you're practicing this for the first 10 times, you're thinking about all the different stress and intonation patterns. But say around the 100th time, you'll find yourself doing this automatically in your speech and automatically in the repeat sentence section. And that's what we want to look for, this automation through practice. So, hopefully from today's lesson, you've taken away the fact that we want to be smart in our practice. We have tons of students who came to us without any sort of idea about what repeat sentence is looking for. And so what ends up happening is they spend hours and hours practicing by just listening to the sentence and repeating it, listening to it and repeating it. And as a result, they have almost sort of no improvement through it, the whole process. And they'll just think to themselves, I can't improve my memory, right? This is all I can remember. There's nothing I can do. But now, equipped with this knowledge, we know that this isn't the case. We've got 3 simple steps into how we can sort of maximize our repeat sentence in the PTE exam. To summarize today's lesson, there are 3 steps for us to practice, especially if we want to be getting a high score in the repeat sentence. First of all, we need to listen to the phrasing of the sentence, not listen to the sentence as a whole. We need to learn to simplify the answer, to use the word something to replace what we don't understand, to replace what we don't remember, and just to replace any sort of area which we find difficulty with, simplifying the answer in our mind. And finally, imitation of stress and intonation. I can't stress the fact enough that the key to repeat sentence and mastering repeat sentence in general is by using these 3 steps and applying them to lots of practice. And through that, you'll be able to find easy success in the repeat sentence section of the PTE test. Okay, thank you for joining me today on PTE Plus online lessons. I hope to see you again very soon.